reptiles. Today I've got a doozy for you. We are going to be talking all about bearded dragon 101 care for beginners. So get out a piece of paper and a pencil, take some notes because we are going to get into it. All right, to start out, we need to talk about what exactly is a bearded dragon. Well, bearded dragons are agamid lizards that are native to Central and Eastern Australia. They are an arid species, meaning that they're found in drier climates and places like deserts, dry forests, and scrublands. Now, the way these cute little guys get their name is from the little pouch underneath their chin that expands and darkens when they're feeling threatened, and it looks just like a beard. These guys spend a lot of their day worshiping the sun. They love the sun, and you will often find them basking on things like branches and stone. They are considered to be terrestrial. However, they actually do like to climb. They are found climbing trees in the wild, and they also like to burrow. Before considering getting one of these guys, please do keep in mind it is a bit of a commitment. Lyle here is not even full grown. They typically max out at about 18 to 24 inches, and they can live anywhere from 10 to 20 years. All right, so let's say you want a bearded dragon. Now what? Well, you got to make sure you do all your research first. Don't just listen to me, check out other reptile keeper videos, read lots of books. I definitely recommend Reptifiles, which is an excellent website that is science-backed. Once research has been done and you have a good understanding of what you need to do and what you're in for with these little guys, the next step is to acquire all your supplies and have a habitat set up, ready to go, with temperatures perfected before you bring one of these dudes home. Another thing to throw out there as well is to make sure you have an exotic vet. There could be a situation where maybe you live somewhere where you're not anywhere close to an exotic vet that can see one of these guys. And bringing home a reptile without an exotic vet is irresponsible and just not a good situation for you or your reptile. These guys are very, very popular in the pet trade and pretty easy to find and obtain one. You can find them at places like Petco or PetSmart, your local reptile shops or expos. However, they are very, very saturated in the breeding market. In my opinion, there is just too much breeding going on of these guys, and I have personal experience because I am on the board for a local reptile rescue, and we see so many of these guys come in on a weekly basis. So I highly, highly recommend that you check out your local rescue. There are so many of these guys in need of a home, and you're also going to get a little bit more of an established Beardie, most likely. When you're going to a pet store and you're getting a little hatchling, they're not going to behave like this. Hatchlings, babies, juveniles are extremely flighty, and they take a long time to tame and just overall get settled and eating good. So getting an adult is actually, in my opinion, a better way to go. You're just going to have an awesome critter who's a little bit more chilled out, a little bit easier to take care of. Please also note it is completely unacceptable to cohab these guys. There have just been so many scenarios where one hurts the other one or even kills the other one. It's just a very dangerous situation. These guys like their solitude and they will just thrive better being alone. Now, with all this covered, let's go ahead and get into the basics of bearded dragon care. We need to start out with habitat. So the basic minimum size habitat for your bearded dragon is going to be a 4x2x2. However, there is a lot of push and studies that have been conducted showing that actually maybe a 6x2x2 is a better minimum for them. Mine are kept in a 4x2x2 right now. They're doing well in that, but the bigger the better is always best. When looking for enclosures, also make sure there is plenty of ventilation while also being able to retain heat. Something with like a mesh screen lid is ideal. And also front opening is just a better situation as well. With the top opening enclosures, you are gonna cause your bearded dragon to be a little bit stressed out. These guys are prey animals, so when you're reaching down over the top, they feel threatened. So just having that front opening enclosure is going to be a lot more beneficial for them. All right, next up, we need to talk about lighting. These guys, as I mentioned, are sun worshipers, so they absolutely need a lot of light and a lot of heat. You will have to establish a gradient in their enclosure. These guys are ectothermic, meaning that they are cold-blooded, so they use their environment to warm themselves up. They need a cool side to cool down and a warm side to warm up. They also need that high temperature basking area because that's how they digest their food. The temps that you want to get situated in your enclosure will be a basking spot of about 108 to 113, a cool side of about 77 to 85, and an overall ambient range of 77 to 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, these guys can tolerate a temperature drop of down to 50 degrees, and a nighttime drop is good for their health. So if your house stays like mine, about 68 degrees, there is no need for an overnight ceramic heat emitter. Definitely never use red bulbs day or night. It is bad for their vision. It's better to just turn everything off. But if you do have like a hatchling or something like that and your house does get rather cool, you can consider something like a deep heat projector, which emits no light, but they do need a day and night cycle regardless. So you will need 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. To achieve that basking zone, you can put something like a log or a stone in their enclosure right under the heat source, so that way it's absorbing that heat. Now, to keep your temperatures on track, you're gonna wanna get a digital thermometer here like this that shows both the humidity and the temperature. These are gonna be a more reliable source than like the little dial ones that you often see at like Petco and stuff like that. Also getting an infrared thermometer gun like this. I'll post a picture right here. You're gonna want one of those just so you can test all the surfaces of your enclosure and get a very accurate reading. Another important thing with lighting is bearded dragons absolutely must have UVB. Without UVB, these guys are not generating vitamin D, which then helps them absorb calcium, which in turn will lead to metabolic bone disease, which is a horrible, horrible thing for your bearded dragon to get. So you definitely want to make sure you have a high quality linear UVB. The little coil ones that go in the dome lamps are not going to be effective. The brands that I recommend are going to be ZoomMed ReptiSun. The T5 10.0 would be ideal for your bearded dragon, something that stretches across the top of their enclosure, or an Arcadia 12%, or they also have the Arcadia Dragon. All the brands' websites do have pretty good information as far as what distance the UVB needs to be from the basking spot to be effective and where to install it in your enclosure. Also, please keep in mind that UVB bulbs will still emit light even when they're no longer producing UVB. So it's a good idea to switch them out about every 6 to 12 months. Arcadia, you can definitely lean a little bit closer to the 12-month period. Otherwise, investing in something pretty expensive like a solar meter will help you ensure that your bulb is still emitting UVB. But if you're not going to do that, just switch them out. Another thing I like to do for my Beardie's enclosures is add a LED bar. I have the Arcadia Jungle Dawn. It just adds more brightness like the sun, which is something that these guys like. And I also have a bioactive setup, so it obviously helps those live plants to grow. All right, moving on, we are going to talk about substrate. So there has been a myth. Wow. I don't know what just happened there. He's trying to bite my buttons. Okay. Lyle. Anyways, substrate. There has been a myth for many years, Lyle's very upset about it too, that bearded dragons should not be kept on loose substrate because they'll ingest it and become impacted. But this is a myth. They need to be kept on loose substrate. However, I will say with hatchlings and juveniles or a reptile that you're bringing home and you need to keep in quarantine, go ahead and start them off on paper towel, but avoid things like reptile carpet. And definitely when you're moving towards loose substrate, do not go with calcium sand. My beardies are kept on a mix of organic topsoil and natural play sand. I do about 70% of the sand, 30% of the topsoil. This also works great with the bioactive setup. However, you can also buy pre-made mixes like the BioDudes Terra Sahara, which is an excellent choice. But with these guys liking to dig and burrow, and especially females when they're gravid, they need that loose substrate. I mean, they live on it in nature and they need that enrichment. It's just better overall for their well-being and their mental stability. Now for decoration and enrichment in their enclosure, having things that they can climb on, like the tree branches or logs like I have in my enclosure, that's great for them. I also use stones that I just find outside and disinfect. I use that for their basking area. And then I also use live plants. However, you can totally use fake ones. If you do choose to use live plants, please make sure they are non-toxic for beardies. Do your research. These guys are omnivores and they will try to eat the plants. You'll also want to have a water dish in the enclosure, something big enough that they have the option to soak in it. There's also another big myth with bearded dragons that they need to soak to stay hydrated. They need baths. They soak up water through their cloaca. It's not true. The way that they get hydrated is through their diet, but having a water dish large enough for them to go in if they choose is great enrichment and a good thing for them to have that option. However, just make sure the water is shallow enough that there is not a chance of them drowning. Okay, now for diet. Diet does get rather complex for these guys. They need a lot of variety and they are omnivores, so they're going to be eating both vegetables and leafy greens as well as insects. Hatchlings of the age of about 0 months to 3 months need to be offered insects and vegetables daily as much as they're wanting to eat. A calcium supplement should also be provided on top of their insects and their salad, and they will also need a multivitamin about 2 times per week. Once these guys become juveniles of about 5 to 6 months old, they can have about 5 to 6 insects daily. Keep them no larger than the size of their head, and then they should still be offered their vegetables, their salads on a daily basis with the calcium supplement on all of the above and the multivitamin 2 times per week. Now, when these guys get older and they become subadults or adults, this diet is going to change quite a bit. They're also not going to eat every single day, which may seem like you're torturing these poor guys since they are typically very willing eaters. But obesity is very common for them. Also, they are going to be needing a lot less protein than a young bearded dragon. Okay, we're gonna put Lyle back in his house because he's getting a little bit restless. There you go, buddy. He'll be right there. So at this point, they're going to be doing about 3 to 4 head-size insects about 2 times per week is all, and then offered their vegetables, their salads, their leafy greens about 2 to 3 times per week. Calcium supplemented on all of the above, and then a multivitamin about 1 time per week. You may be wondering about fruit. Fruit should really be limited in their diet since it's so high in sugar and these guys are prone to obesity. So it's something that should be considered like a once in a while treat. As I mentioned before, they do need a variety and there are a lot of different vegetables and insects that these guys can eat. I would recommend heading over to the Reptiles page and looking up bearded dragons. They have a whole list of different staple vegetables or occasional ones. So you'll be able to get a good idea there of what is and is not acceptable for them. All right, guys, well, that's all that I have for today. Hopefully this helps you get a general start to keeping bearded dragons. I definitely don't recommend them as a beginner reptile. Their diet is just super complex. Their lining is very complex. There's a lot of things to take into consideration here. So make sure, like I said, you are doing your research. And with all that being said, happy reptile keeping. Leave comments below with any other questions that you might have or other videos that you'd like to see. Smash that subscribe button. I'm new here and I hope you all have a beautiful day.